Welcome to the CleverTap tour. My name is Sunil Thomas and I'm the co-founder and CEO. We built CleverTap with a simple mission to dramatically improve customer retention by providing you the tools and techniques to effectively engage your users. Our platform helps you create magnetic experiences for every individual user. We identify your users individually based on their behavior and intent and provide you with the tools and strategies required to convert them. This is driven by our industry-leading segmentation engine that allows you to reach your users through native personalized experiences when they are in your apps and through omni-channel messaging when they are not in your apps. The net result is highly engaged and happy users and a much improved customer lifetime value for the business. We work with some of the world's largest brands across verticals. We are built for scale and speed. I encourage you to explore the power of the CleverTap platform and ask us absolutely any questions that you might have. I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Once upon a time, two boys were born, Benoit and Terry.
And I think call it a bromance.
So basically, we propose a brand new architecture for the cloud. It is an architecture which is designed to support fault isolation, performance isolation, and elasticity of the cloud.
Such that for customers, they would only pay for what they use, and also so that the system would scale to infinity.
Yeah, what he says.
Hello, we are Descara. Here's a fun fact. By 2025, every Asian enterprise, small, medium, or large, will be directly or indirectly connected to the internet. And since we love helping businesses, we made an integrated, easy-to-use business software just for them so they can operate effortlessly, effectively, and efficiently from anywhere in real time. It's goodbye forever to lack of data, manual and complex processes, and hello growth. The international recognition, awards, and industry certifications we've received only make us work harder. Today, we are trusted by over 20,000 organizations and 100,000 end users. We've grown lightning fast to 10 offices globally with over 400 employees. And we're not stopping. Descara is Asia's leading cloud-based business software provider, and we love helping businesses.
Cool.
Oh, the breakout. So do we hear back from the founders now, Joy?
Yes. Now we're going to hear the founder perspectives.
This has been so transformational in so many ways.
All the sessions from the speakers used to come, some of them literally left us with goosebumps.
Every minute of that content was useful.
It actually comes with an extended team who are functional experts and who've got your back.
The relationships that we've made over Surge have been amazing.
It's just an insanely inspirational experience.
We probably wouldn't have existed if it weren't for Surge. So it wasn't just the capital.
The markets changed, the tactics changed, the strategy changed, but how do you continue to evolve both as a company and as people?
It's been so amazing to work with each and every one of you.
It's been truly an honor for us to work with you guys.
Thank you for giving us a chance to be a part of it.
Thank you
everyone. It's been amazing.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much, guys. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Welcome back to the Tech in Asia virtual conference. I hope everyone had a awesome lunch. I know I did. I'm Eric, the MC for the rest of the day. So just to give you guys a preview of what's coming up this afternoon, we have a fireside chat on the future of online food delivery with Vivek Sundar, COO of Swiggy. Next, a panel about managing the AI talent gap in the Asian perspective. Then we have another fireside chat with the CEO of Bukalapak, Rahmat Kaimuddin, on his first year reflections of running the company, followed by a panel about the risks and rewards of working at an early age startup. Then followed by a fireside chat with Justin Khan of Goat Capital and TIA's very own Willis Wee on the topic about why founders should care about their mental wellness. After that, we're followed by another fireside chat with Hussein M. Elias of Pathao to discuss Bangladesh as a next Indonesia for tech. Then we're capping off the day with two keynote sessions, the first one on the emerging mobile app trends of 2021 and beyond with Cindy Dung, International Managing Director of App Annie, and a keynote presentation with Ahmad Zaki, founder of Init6, on managing spending efficiency in tough times. So sit back, relax, let your lunch settle, and stay tuned for these awesome sessions. And on to our next session here, since we all just had lunch, which we're appropriately segueing to our next fireside chat on the topic of the future of online food delivery with our speaker, Vivek Sundar, Chief Operating Officer of Swiggy, India's largest food tech startup, and our moderator, Sunil Thomas, CEO and co-founder of CleverTap, a leading customer retention platform and mobile marketing company. All right, Vivek and Sunil, welcome to the conference.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Cool, great to have you guys.
So thank you, Vivek, for being here. This is a truly global conference, I must say, where it's an event in Singapore and I'm in the Bay Area and you're on the other side of the world. Thank you for the time. Welcome. I wanted to start off maybe with a little bit of a personal story. Tell me a little bit about your journey, Vivek, to come into Swiggy, your experience of 20 plus years at Procter & Gamble with roles across the world. You worked in Southeast Asia, Singapore, Bangkok, India, of course, but also outside in the UK. So if I was a betting man, I would not have put a lot of money on you joining Swiggy. So tell me a little bit about what attracted you to Swiggy in the first place, how that ride has been and what's changed over the last 2.5 years for you.
Sure. Thank you, Sunil. Thanks for moderating the session. It's great. I was going to say I have to remember to say different things to different people given how global the conference is. To you, I have to say good night. To the others, I have to say good evening. And I'm still waking up here. So in that sense, it's great to sort of reflect on the last couple of years. Like many people, I think we've all joined companies which maybe not necessarily for the pay, but for the experience and the colleagues and the kind of learning experience. And P&G is as good as it gets. It's one of the best learning schools there is. So it's literally a school after school. So I joined that straight out of business school. Had a fantastic experience, had the privilege of working in Bangkok, lived there, amazing experience. Went over to the UK, great experience in Europe, then came back to Southeast Asia. I was in a regional office in Singapore, and then went back to India, was doing a chief commercial officer role, reporting into the CEO. And I guess the company at that time said, look, you've done enough. I think we are ready to give you the big job, which is the CEO of the country. So I did that for a cluster of 15 countries in East Africa. And that was a great experience. I would not trade that in for anything else, both living there as well as working there. One of the things that I felt I was consistently missing out on maybe over the last 5 years, not so much the whole of the career, was the fact that there was this world which was sort of changing around me. And I wasn't in the thick of it. And that change was largely driven by tech, as you know very well. And I felt that, yes, of course, as a company, we were leveraging technology, but we weren't at the heart of it. So, moving from the periphery to the sort of ground zero was the trigger. So the first trigger, if you think about it, is to get from the peripheral part of technology to the center of technology, because this is, after all, a food tech company. Food is one of the things we do. The second thing was, I think that being in P&G, I'd learned consumer and consumer centricity on like there is no parallel. I mean, it's literally the most consumer-centric company that exists over a 180-year period. So given that, I felt that any company that's leveraging technology to go after consumers is likely to win. Nothing against B2B or anything of that sort, but at the heart of it, consumer is really at the sort of holy grail of trying to get the business to happen. And the third one really was timing. Frankly, 10 years ago, maybe this company, if it existed, the reality is that the Indian consumer, or maybe even the global consumer, may not have been ready. I mean, you don't want to order for food on a buggy software or a buggy phone or a buggy location-aware device. The fact that there had been all this sort of technology that had got to maturity, location-sensitive technology, cloud computing so that you can actually do stuff on the cloud and push it out, and also the fact that the delivery ecosystem, the sort of young men and women who actually deliver and who are not necessarily the most privileged, are able to actually afford a phone, means that you actually have the ripe ecosystem. So the sort of the ground has to be fertile. So I felt the timing was right. Who knows whether it's too early or too late, but I felt the timing was right. And so when you put those three things together, I think it made sense to join. And I was so happy that I met the founders. I think their values are very, very strong. They're clearly more wiser than their age. I wish I was as wise at 30 as our co-founder is at 30. So in that sense, I think it just all worked out. And I mean, a lot of it is serendipity. I don't want to give you the serendipitous thing of I was coming home for Christmas break and somebody introduced me to them and all of that. But I think the core of it is this technology, consumer centricity, and the timing part of it.
Got it. Yeah, we can vouch for the timing. Swiggy is now, of course, a unicorn. Last valuation I saw was, $3.5 billion more, actually. And so let me rewind you back, Vivek, maybe to the early Swiggy days. Swiggy did not have a first mover advantage even in India. So all of this big growth, all of this blitz scaling journey seems to have literally happened over the last 5 years, give or take, right? So what's that ride been like? What are one or two secrets maybe that you can talk about of how you guys went through it, and maybe then come a little bit to 2020 and talk a little about maybe how COVID has influenced this in a good or a bad way.
Sure. So that's part of the mandate that I had joined for, in the sense that in any good consumer goods company in India will actually know real India, which means not just the metro cities, the big cities, or if I take Southeast Asia, you shouldn't just know Bangkok and Chiang Mai, but you should know the 76 provinces. If you were to just take an example of Thailand, or if you take Indonesia, then you can't just know Jakarta and Yogyakarta and all of those places. You got to know the real islands. And so in that sense, the fact that we knew, at least my experience, we knew the rest of India, meant that if there was a time to scale it and blitz scale it, somebody who's actually been there and spoken to consumers and understands consumers there was useful. But that said, here's a story. So we started in 2014. For the first 3.5 years, we were really only in the top 8-9 metros. And even there, we used to then go to the 9th. After the 8th metro, then you would go to the 9th metro. And even though we were a technology company, think about what needed to get done. You had to go there and hire a bunch of delivery boys and girls. You had to train them. Most often, this was the first app they were using. You then had to go and get the large number of restaurants to come onto the platform. And then you had to do a commercial agreement with them, because obviously there's a commission agreement that needs to happen. And then you had to also sometimes train them on how to use the app, because the restaurateurs are not necessarily people who are using apps for commerce. They were largely individual store owners, equivalent to the mom and pop stores, who were just selling good food. So given that, the model was go plunk a team in a city, and then spend 1 month to build the city up. Now, if you do it at that rate, which is a month a city, and you tell people that says, okay, throw more money at it, throw more people at it, fine. You might do instead of doing 1 city in a month, you might do 2 cities in a month, or perhaps even 3 cities in a month. Or if you're lucky, you might even do 10 cities in a month if you're throwing adequate amount of resources at it. But at that rate, we would have basically got to real India over 5 years. So one of the things we did was we said, okay, let's put this, we are already a disrupting company. Let's find a way to disrupt ourselves, which is let's create a team that's going to disrupt the way the existing expansion team is working. And we gave them a mandate that says you have to basically do what's been done in the first 3.5 years in 3 months. And of course, they thought there's this guy who's worked in these random companies, which has nothing to do with technology. He doesn't know what he's talking about, etc. So the board wasn't happy as well, because they were not sure about whether this actually had merit. So one of the things we did was we said, okay, look, we are a data-based company. We believe in technology. We believe in data. Let's do the following. If we don't believe it, let's take the top 500 cities of India. Let's take city number 51, 101, 151, 201, and so on and so forth. So you're literally skipping 50 cities and going to each of these cities. That gives you about, 5-6 cities. Each of those 5-6 cities will represent the cohort to which it belongs, by and large. And let's go and just launch in those 5 cities. It doesn't take much time to launch in those 5 cities. And let's see what the potential is, rather than sit and debate on a PowerPoint and an Excel sheet. So let's do that.
Got it.
So we did 2 things. One, we did that. And while we were doing this, we were assuming that this will give us success. And let's make a plan on how to blitz scale it. Okay.
Got it.
So now the real reason behind why we were confident that it'll give us success is because when you're actually a successful company in the metros and you're advertising, then you actually know this is the location of a device. So I actually know how many people have downloaded us in every city of the country and have not used us because we're putting a banner saying, sorry, we're not serving you. Much like if I were to download Gojek and try to use it here, what would it say to me? Sorry, we don't serve you yet, right? So we knew exactly which locations there is demand. So we took that information, we went to consumers and said, hey, listen, looks like you want to use us in your city. We don't know your city very well. Could you tell us which are the restaurants that you would like to order from? So we crowdsourced that. We didn't have a single person on the ground. And on that basis, we remotely created a 5-city launch model, which of course worked very well because there was demand. And then we decided to sort of remotely launch it. So most of the cities that we launched were launched without a single human being there, which is a complete paradigm shift. That you don't have a human being in the city, you don't know anything about the city, you don't know the traffic, you don't know where to recruit from, you don't know which the restaurants are. We said, look, let's just ask the consumers. We'll crowdsource it. So we crowdsourced it, and long story short, while we had added 10 cities in the first 3.5 years, in the next 12 to 15 months, we added 500 cities.
Wow.
Right? Wow. Because that's obviously what blitzscaling is. I mean, adding another 10 cities or 50 cities or whatever it was is not going to be considered blitzscaling. So we blitzscaled it, and we crowdsourced it in very interesting ways. So for example, there are lots of cities where the biggest consuming population is universities, right? Because obviously university kids are young, they're tech savvy, they're hungry. I'm sure you remember your time in campus where you were super hungry all the time. Now you'll skip dinner maybe after, because we've eaten into your dinner time and you wouldn't mind it.
I wish in those days alcohol was also delivered, Vivek.
That's
but
right.
Not the case.
Exactly. So what we did was actually, that's one of the other, maybe we should cover it later. That's one of the businesses we've gotten into as well. So we said to campus students, we said, look, how would you like to be an intern, but in a very different way? Stay on campus, become the CEO of Swiggy on your campus. So we created a campus CEO program, recruited maybe 100, 150 campuses, students from those 150 campuses, made them CEO, to train them for 3 days on how to be the CEO for the city. Gave them a budget and said, now you start it. Now we didn't have to then worry about, when does the campus open? When does it close? When does which are the best restaurants in the cities? You had a bunch of hungry people who were tech savvy doing this work for us. So that worked really well. So that was another one of those things that was part of this whole outsourced model of expansion. So that's kind of how we blitzscaled. And the reality is that while we were not the first movers by far, we were actually the fourth, the fifth entrance into the market. Eventually, we became the first player in the 550 cities of the market. Now, obviously, underlying that was also the fact that we had a service and technology that consumers loved. But when you take an item that consumers love, you've got to still put it in the hands of consumers and delivery partners and stuff like that. So that's the story of blitzscaling the food delivery business. Maybe later we'll talk a little bit about how we got into the other businesses, but that's a bit of a COVID story.
No, that's an awesome story. So let me skip to that actually, on innovation a little bit, because, I see, and, I'm an entrepreneur, we run a B2B company though, but I see a lot of companies in this time, right? COVID and lockdown and all of these things have got a little bit like paralyzed, it's a little bit into a shell and all of that. And I see Swiggy in the market with just a whole bunch of new initiatives, maybe you can talk about one or two of your favorite ones, whether it's a grocery marketplace or Instamart. The Naleba campaign I thought was awesome on TV, the Genie service, cloud kitchens, even Jumpstart. There's just a whole bunch. And I just see, this innovation concept is a very core. I mean, this is hard to do. So again, maybe describe one or two of your favorite initiatives as you talk, if you can throw light on some of the insights of how you inspire and mobilize such large teams, to come together at this scale. Any secrets of innovation that will help other entrepreneurs?
Sure. I'd say we've got the scars of COVID and lockdown. We're definitely not, we don't think we've done everything brilliantly. There's a lot of mistakes we've made. Hopefully we had made less mistakes than some others. Who knows? We never know that. But the reality is that we've been one of the more visible service during this COVID lockdown period. Consumers have actually pretty strongly rewarded us by saying that Swiggy has been one of the top three brands in India that consumers talk about that saved them during the COVID lockdown period. One of those three is Swiggy, and Swiggy is perhaps one of the youngest company in that list.
Yes, definitely.
Right?
That's awesome appreciation.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we're proud of that because it's been done by a very young team. And I think at the heart of it, there are three things that we believe we should focus on as our strengths. And those three things are CTO, right? Now, that's not Chief Technology Officer, as is most commonly known. But it's C stands for consumer, which is we must be absolutely fully aware of, and we must leverage heavy duty analytics and data science and consumer insighting, which is both the behavioral science aspects of it and the qualitative aspects of it. So it's a whole bunch of quant and qual insights that we get on the consumer. So we understand the consumer, or try to understand the consumer more real time, better, deeper, etc. C. The T in CTO is technology. In this case, technology happens to be the same. We are obviously at the heart technology company. We have a great bunch of engineers and product leaders who kind of know how to leverage that to make it work. And O in the CTO framework is operations. We have people on the ground. There is, at the end of the day, you can have the best, coolest app possible, but if the food doesn't reach you in 30 minutes, then people, think the world has come crashing down. You should attend some of our call center calls. Food is delayed by 20 minutes, and the consumers would make you believe that the earth has come to an end. So the reality is that unless you have brilliant operations, nothing's going to work, whether it is food delivery or grocery or any of the other services that we have. So we have to be good at operations. So CTO is the sort of three strengths that we want to focus on always. And any service that leverages these three is kosher for us as a choice, as a strategic choice. Any service or any need the consumer has that does not leverage either two out of the three or all three of the three, we don't want to enter into, because we believe that we will not be able to, if you don't work on leveraging the best strengths that you've developed over the years, then you're going to be a me too versus somebody else who's got those strengths, which is the thing which I wanted to say, that during COVID, that's what we did. We said, okay, we used to do a weekly review on how things are going and a sort of weekly review on both the analytics side and the consumer side. We moved that to daily because we felt that every day things were changing. New data was coming to consumers and people were changing. For example, there was an instance, not a Swiggy instance, but a standalone pizzeria actually had one of the staff tested positive. And this is like 6 months ago. Now, he or she, in this case, he did not infect a single consumer. And it was not even a Swiggy delivery boy, right? It was not even a Swiggy restaurant, as it were.
Got it.
It was like crazy because our business dropped 30%. So if you think about our business dropping 30% on the basis of some random pizzeria whose staff has turned positive, nobody's been infected, you realize how much we had to do. So we basically had to review voice of the customer very strongly. We had to make sure that we go after understanding analytics. And based on that, we found that consumers are looking to connect between families and friends, things that basically needed to be shipped. So that meant that we turned on Genie, which is really a point-to-point pick up and drop service from place A to place B like crazy. They found that they were asking us to go and add grocery store and deliver, pick up grocery. They found that they were asking us to go to their schools and pick up the books. So we basically started a book service and pretty much everything under the sun that needed the real-time consumer to consumer operations and technology we went into. Now we knew that some of it won't last post-COVID when the lockdown ends and so on and so forth, and some of it has waned off. But we knew that the learnings that we would get would stand us in good stead as we exited. And so today we have a rich list of ideas that we think will stand us in good stead through 2021.
Got it. No, that's awesome. So Vivek, I do want to leave some time for some audience questions also, but I do want to, talk a little bit about the future. So if you want to throw a light on, what's in the future for Swiggy, maybe you can talk separately about India. Obviously, that's very huge, and Southeast Asia that you guys have probably on a slightly different stage of growth. What are the growth channels of tomorrow? And then we can take some questions from the audience also.
Sure. So in terms, India is the only market we have right now. We don't have any immediate plans of expansion because Southeast Asia has a fantastic bunch of players. And unless we have something which is uniquely meaningful to the consumers, there's no point in trying to enter there.
Got it.
So coming to India itself, recovery of the food delivery business and continued growth, but a much more profitable growth given the environment and the overall macro environment demanding greater unit economics and financial sustainability is job number one, which we are well and truly on. We've recovered to about 80-85% of pre-COVID volumes. We think that with over the next 3-4 months, we should be able to cross the 100% mark. And then from there on, 2021 is all growth. we think that going after some of these new verticals that have just opened up for us and actually doing very well, Genie, Instamart, which is actually grocery stores, meat, pet food, a whole bunch of these category verticals that actually need real time and actually need great service is something we want to get into. And linked to that, there are many other verticals that are actually in pilot right now, which, because consumers have asked us for it, we said, okay, let's run a pilot. And if some of these fructify, then we might even lay that on to IPL. So think of it as we sort of entered COVID as a largely food player. We have exited COVID as a food plus player. And I think that's the best thing that came out of COVID. So looking at sort of a glass half full.
That's awesome, actually. That is good. And even the volumes, I mean, it's incredible that you're back to 85% of volumes and so on. So it's really, really well done. There's a lot of belief in fundamentals, belief in data. I can see CTO obviously not changing, I think, for any expansion in the near term, at least, which is really great. So I think we have 5 minutes. I do have a couple of questions. A question from Holly is asking, Vivek, how do you maintain the food to be still good? I guess it's across all these 500 plus cities, to be in good shape and temperature, etc. during delivery.
Sure. So we have. So if you think about food can. There are three things that we check, right? One is the restaurant itself in good shape or not, right? We don't onboard. In fact, we have more rejects of, even though we are a marketplace, we have guardrails. So we actually have more rejects than we have selects in terms of who we onboard onto the platform. If they don't have the right hygiene certifications, if they don't pass the hygiene mark, if they are not able to run their operations well, they're not even onboarded onto the platform. Of course, if they invest in the hygiene and technology and all of that, then we sort of onboard them. So that's one thing, which is at source itself, before you're onboarded onto the platform, there is a check that we do. The second part of how food can go bad is if it basically is not, it's handled for too long. I mean, hot in Asian food is not going to last very well if it crosses a certain number. So we actually have a number of, by cuisine, how long can it travel before it basically gets screwed up, right?
Got it.
So for some of the foods which is very finicky, like dosas or French fries, we don't give it a very large radius. We give it a short radius because we know that beyond a certain radius, the time will be too much. And even if you handle it well, it'll get bad. And the third one is we invest in the packaging technology and the way the driver handles the food to make sure the food is held well in terms of the primary and the secondary packaging. So those three things largely 95% cover for the food safety and the food heat issues, as it were. I believe our time is up, so I just want to be conscious of that.
I think our time is up. Eric, can I take one more question, or I can hand it over to you?
Yeah, sure.
So maybe one question last, Vivek, and that's really, I would like you to maybe to leave the audience with a little bit of an internal, team story or something, right? Like, is there a COVID story, motivation, maybe in engineering business teams, maybe in the delivery teams, whatever else? Love to hear something from inside the company, so to speak, as a feel-good story for everyone. And
sure. I'd like to focus on the frontline fleet, the delivery boys and girls. At the time when the lockdown happened, pretty much there were only 4 people who were out in the streets, right? There was the police and the medical professional. Medical professional. There was, of course, the delivery boys. Then of course there was a few more services that were deemed super essential, right? The thing is that for the delivery boys, for the government and for us to work together to make sure the delivery boys and girls are considered essential was a big thing, because I don't know how it is in Southeast Asia. I suspect there's a similarity, but delivery boys were not at the top of the essential services list pre-COVID, right? I mean, they were just thought of as low wage, low quality workers. So this was a big source of pride for them. In fact, all of the efforts from our side as well as from the government side to make sure that they are seen as frontline workers and therefore needs to be applauded was something that was the first thing. We also invested a lot in the safety of them. So I'll tell you, we have over 300,000 delivery partners out in the streets. It's just a lot. And they've delivered literally tens of millions of orders in the last 5 months, right? But touch wood. And they've gone into quarantine zones. Their mums and their wives and their husbands have been telling them, don't do this work. It's not necessary. Just stay at home, right? Because who wants to go into a COVID quarantine zone, where there's a building with a case? But they have actually gone in because we've actually invested in safety and safety, but technology-fueled safety systems that actually mean that the probability of them getting infected is significantly lower. And that's just been the biggest source of pride, that we actually still have a fleet out there that's working and they're so thrilled to be still at work. Now, I wish I could explain longer, but I guess our time is up. But that's our single sense source of pride, that the men and women out in the street are safe and they've delivered a service that all of India respects and loves.
That is awesome. Thank you very much again, Vivek, for the time. Thank you, Eric. Over to you.
Thank you. All right, thanks Vivek and Sunil for that enlightening chat. Hope both you guys had fun. Before we go to our next session, just a heads up, we have an Ask the Expert side session coming up later at 2:30 Singapore time on marketing insights. We have a panel of marketing and business development experts from AppNext, Traveloka, and OVO. So just go to the conference platform, go to the Ask the Expert tab next to the main agenda tab to access the session. And if you want to send questions ahead of time, simply click on the Submit Your Question Here link. And of course, big special shout out to our gold sponsors, CleverTap and Snowflake, as well as our silver sponsor, Descara, for supporting the conference. So don't forget to check out their booths at the conference platform.